Okay, so today I'm going to talk about shading with you all. You should all have this worksheet inside your sketchbook, and some of you may or may not have completed it already this week. But even if you have completed it, I want you to pay attention to what I'm doing just to make sure we're all on the same page. So this worksheet is all about light and dark. Everything has a little bit of light and everything has a little bit of darkness in it. And in art, we call that value. You also might know it as shading. Shading makes objects look three-dimensional, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. And I'm actually going to complete this worksheet, and you can either follow along with me, or you can watch this video, stop it, try something, or just watch the whole video and then try it on your own. So it's important to understand how you hold a pencil. I often refer to holding a baseball bat, except in this situation, when you choke up on your bat, you're kind of choking up towards the lead, okay? So for all my baseball players or softball players out there, you know what I mean. So when you hold closer to the tip of your pencil, you're going to be able to create a stronger pressure, okay? And as you want to get lighter with your pencil, you want to actually move up, okay? You can even try this trick. I always tell students, try making your pencil wiggle like you did when you were a little kid, kind of creating that optical illusion. That looseness, go ahead and try it with me. That looseness is how you want to hold your pencil when you're getting to those really light values, okay? So holding your pencil close to the lead makes your value darker, and as you get up on your pencil, okay, you get really light, and you'll actually see me do this. In addition, to make something darker, you need to put pressure with your pencil, and as you are moving up on your pencil, what helps you get less pressure is moving up on your pencil and not pressing as firmly. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so to begin with, we want to start over here on this side of our worksheet. This is kind of our warm-up before we get to our object, okay? What this is doing is we are creating different types of values, okay, which eventually we're going to apply over here. But keep in mind that this is a print-off, and you have a copy of a print-off, so you may not see on your worksheet like you see on this one how each of these get lighter and lighter, but I want you to definitely try that on each of these squares here. We call this a value scale, okay? So you're gonna watch here as I get started. I'm putting a lot of pressure, not so much pressure that I'm breaking my pencil, okay? But I'm holding it close to the tip of my pencil. I'm also shading this right now, or creating this value. I'm coloring it with smooth pencil marks and within the lines of my box as best as I can. For this, you can go outside the box a little bit. That's okay. And I'm putting a nice even pressure as I fill that in. Another thing I want you to notice is that I'm also going in the same direction as I'm creating this dark value, and I'm also going over it just to make sure I can get it as dark as I possibly can. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and start completing the rest of these, and as you can see, I've already moved up on my pencil. I kind of did that instinctually. I'm going to try to make this one kind of a dark gray now. And you might need to take a break with your hand because it might hurt a little bit, and that's okay. So as you can see, I have different values in each of these blocks, and it's getting lighter and lighter, and because my paper is white, I don't need to fill in that very last step, okay? Hopefully you can see that in the video. Now what I want to do is I want to apply these same values over to my sphere here. And it's great because this one shows you what it should look like, and it also gives you terms for the different types of shadows that exist in an object when you shade it, okay? Or you give it value to make it look three-dimensional or a form. So you have your cast shadow, which is your darkest shadow. That would be this area here. You have your core of the shadow, which would be your dark grays and a little bit of this, the darkest value here. And then you start having those transitional light middle values, all of these right here, until you get to that highlight, okay? And then there's something called reflected light. It's a little sliver of white, and I'm going to show you how to use your eraser to kind of help with your highlight in that reflected light. An important thing to know and learn, and of course it gives you it here, is to know where your light source is coming from. So I always like to make little marks to help remind me when I'm creating a 3D shape, especially when I'm kind of making it up, where my light will be coming from. So in this case, it's coming from the top right. So I'm just, for you guys, so you can kind of see, I have light coming all around this area, okay? And that sort of lines helping me remember that that's where my light is shining, okay? And if my light is shining on the top right of my object, then my darkest areas are going to be on the opposite direction, and in this case on the bottom left, okay? So let's get started. I'm going to begin shading the cast shadow, okay? That is my darkest area. I'm going to go ahead and start filling that in using as much pressure with my pencil. Again, I'm not putting so much pressure that I'm breaking the tip of my pencil, okay? I am giving my hand a little workout though. I can always feel it in my muscles. Okay, so I've got a really nice dark value there for my cast shadow. Something I also want to point out is that your cast shadow is always in the shape of your object. So because we're shading a circle, my cast shadow is sort of an oblong or a long circle. Okay, so now I'm going to get into the core of the shadow, and I'm going to again be using these values up here, sort of my darkest values and my dark grays. Now, whenever you're starting to shade an object, I always tell students shade in the direction of your object. So in this case, I'm shading a circle, which means I'm going to curve my lines. Also, too, don't forget that you can rotate your paper in any direction that makes it more comfortable for you. For my left-handed students, I see you do this a lot more than some of my right-handed students because you're probably used to having to do that. So all students, I'm constantly turning my paper around to get it in whatever direction I need to complete the technique so that it looks right. Another thing you could think about too, this only really applies to when you're shading a circle object, but you can almost think of it like crescent moons, okay? But really that only applies to a circle. So I've got my darkest value, okay? And you can already see I always do it kind of instinctually, but I've already started to move up a little bit on my pencil to start getting some of these dark grays. And I want to kind of start that by overlapping on my object. Now, I'm going to do something off to the side really quick because I see a lot of students do this. Let's do a little circle right here. I see a lot of students do a little dark shadow and then take their finger and go like this and say, I shaded, I'm done. But that's not correct. Don't do that. I'm actually going to show you how to blend here with your finger or with a paper towel in just a moment. Or if you're fortunate enough to have a smudge tool, you can use one of that, which really a smudge tool is just a rolled up piece of paper that's rolled really tightly to look almost like a pencil and you can tear off pieces as you are using it to smudge. So really, a piece of paper or a paper towel works just as well. So I'm going to keep applying all these values until I get up here to my highlight. I'm starting to get into some of my light grays now, those middle values. I'm even going to kind of come up around here to the top a little bit. Okay, so for my friends who are eager to start doing that, you can use your finger, but I'm going to actually show you with a paper towel, and you're welcome to get any by the sink later on in class once you've gotten started. But what you want to do is you don't want to lose all of these great values you've created, but you do want to maybe blend your pencils together and mix up those lines, because you really want it to be as smooth as possible. This kind of shading technique is called blended shading. So I'm barely putting any pressure, hardly any at all, and I'm using the graphite of my pencil to kind of just blend in my object, okay? And I'm going to even use the graphite that got on my paper towel to create some of these very light grays, these light values up here. Okay. I want to make sure that this is a nice smooth transition between my darkest values and my medium ones down here. You can also use this in your cast shadow too, just to make sure it's nice and neat. Now we're not quite done, because remember I told you your eraser is just as good of a tool for shading as is the lead. So what we want to do is we want to come in here and we want to create our highlight. So what I do is I just take my eraser and I use it like I would a pencil, and I erase away a little bit of that pencil to sort of create that glare, that highlight in our object, kind of right where that light is directly hitting the object. And then don't forget about our reflected light. So our reflected light is a little light that's bouncing off the table or floor or ground, wherever your object is sitting. So all it is a little sliver of light, and it also kind of shows a distinction between your object and your cast shadow. So I'm just going to take a little bit of my eraser and just erase just the teeniest, tiniest, and as you can see, a little sliver right there for my cast shadow. Excuse me, for my reflected light by my cast shadow. So guys, this is a good start for shading. If you didn't do it this way, I'd like you to maybe not necessarily get a new worksheet if you've already completed it. If you haven't completed this worksheet, please complete this worksheet just as I've shown you. And if you have already done it, but you didn't quite do it the way I showed you, then get to a new page in your sketchbook, trace another circle, create another value scale, and try it again. That's what this is for. It's to practice before we get to our big projects here soon. Another thing you could do is maybe you could try some other objects. You know, I did a cone here, and I also did a cylinder or a can, whatever you want to call it. And I did the exact same techniques I did up here, where I decided where my light source was coming from, and I kind of switched it up a little just for practice, and drew my object, drew my cast shadow in the same shape as my object. So here it's more triangular and here it's kind of squared. And I did the same thing, putting my darkest pressure and getting lighter as I'm going up to those light sources on both of them, and blended with my paper towel. And then I went in and used my eraser to erase away from my highlight and create my reflected light. Another thing you could do too, and I want you to try this, is maybe try doing a shape with a colored pencil. It's the exact same technique. So I did a circle here, but I'm going to show you how a value scale might look. Again, that you can just do a quick one off to the side to kind of practice your values. I have my darkest value, putting as much pressure, kind of choking up on my pencil, and then I kind of loosen up. I get sort of a medium value with that. And then I just keep getting lighter and lighter. Now the difference between a pencil graphite and colored pencil though is you won't really be able to blend with your paper towel or really erase it as easily. So just something to keep in mind. So you really want to make sure your pencil marks are as smooth as possible. Okay, and you just keep getting lighter and lighter. And so you can see here I took the same technique and I applied it here, going in the same direction just like I showed you on this. All right, and then something else you could try is maybe just drawing something really simple like a balloon or a flower, maybe an ice cream cone, just a really simple object, maybe a very simple turtle or something. An eye could work, and maybe try blending colored pencils. So you could see what I did was I found a dark color and a light color and I mixed them together. So I used a pink and a yellow here on the tip, and I used a green and just a light green from my pencils here, and I did the same thing for my balloon and my leaf. And then on this outer flower I did a purple and then a light pink, and so it's the same idea. I'm starting with the dark pressure, and as I'm going up I'm getting a little lighter, but I don't want to go all the way to the tip because I want to see my other color as well. So what I want to do now is I don't want to start quite as strong with the pressure on the lighter color, but I want to start in the middle and kind of blend those two colors together and start getting a really pretty transition. And then as I go up towards that tip, I'm getting lighter. Okay, and then you could also maybe take your Sharpie and outline all of your objects just to make it really pop. And we're going to keep practicing this technique for a couple of days in class. You can also think about maybe going back into your sketchbook challenges and try adding in some shading to these now that we've talked about it. Okay. Thank you for listening.